So there's a lot of movement going on in both the Middle East and with the Ukraine and Russia situation. And as most people know by now, that President Donald Trump has ordered the removal of U.S. troops out of Syria, declaring a victory over ISIS, which of course is not true. Just like before in the Obama administration, he also declared victory over ISIS, and then they had to do a surge in Iraq because ISIS they went underground for a while, and then when victory was declared over them, they started regrouping and came back in even greater numbers. It might have been 3 times as many in numbers. So to sit there and say they have defeated ISIS is just simply not true. According to fact, you know, I should have gone and look. I've got to go to Debka. I've got to go to Debka.com. And give me just a minute here. It's not Debka.com, but Debka Weekly. All right. Very important stuff here. And I'll get to Ukraine situation in just a minute. Apparently, Ukraine is considering declaring a war against Russia. So, we'll get started on Debka Weekly right here. And I need to go ahead and pull up my screen share. All right. Now, U.S. exit from Syria empowers Putin, and Iran leaves Sunni bloc Israel, Jordan, Iraq in the lurch. U.S. troop exit from Syria, announced by President Donald Trump on Wednesday, December 19th, blasted through the Middle East with seismic intensity. Debka Weekly offers a partial rundown of the fallout. Russia. President Vladimir Putin becomes the unchallenged strongman of Syria for years to come. His army will no longer be restricted to a couple of bases, but reign supreme in most parts of the country. Still, the Russian leader will be saddled with problems. He will have to contain Iran's influence in Damascus and cope with a re-emerging ISIS while short of funds for the vast project of reconstruction facing Syria after a devastating 7-year war. Number 2, Iran. Also elevated in the power stakes is Iran's General Qasem Soleimani, commander of the Revolutionary Guard Al-Quds Brigade. He can pose as a strong local potentate with an impressive resume. He was responsible for Iran's decisive contribution to Bashar Assad's victory against the Syrian insurgency. He remodeled after Hezbollah's militia to become the strongest army in Lebanon. He designed the battle for wresting Kirkuk and its oil fields from Iraq's Turks, engineered Hamas's 9-month anti-Israel campaign for the Gaza Strip, and ensured Israel's failure to uproot Iranian military presence from Syria. All of these feats capped by U.S. exit from Syria, for which the Iranian general will no doubt take credit. Soleimani will claim that Washington, by taking leave of Syria, will undermine its positions in the Middle East and even weaken the impact of the sanctions against Iran. Number 3, Israel is a major casualty. Its military and intelligence posture hinged on the presumption of American boots on the ground in eastern and northern Syria as a barrier against pro-Iranian Iraqi militias crossing in to fight Israel in Syria and Lebanon. The U.S. presence was a reassuring counterweight to the Russian presence. Its departure will leave Israel standing alone against the Iranian and Russian forces in their shared interests and actions. On Wednesday night, when Israel's leaders were still reeling from the news of the imminent U.S. departure, some American officials offered assurances that the U.S. Air Force would still be around for rendering assistance if necessary. This assurance was taken with a grain of salt. No one in the Middle East feels able any longer to trust an American promise of assistance. And that, my friends, is an understatement. Of late, moreover, the once warm and friendly interaction between Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu has been marred by occasional misunderstandings and snags in communications. No, it wasn't any of that, folks. Let's be honest. It was lies and stabbing in the back. That's what it was. Coming from both the Obama administration and the Trump administration. And previous administrations. It just keeps on happening. It just doesn't stop. Israel's government, army, and intelligence suddenly face the immense task running into billions of dollars of overhauling its military. The Syrian front will have to be rebuilt and reinforced after 2 years in which Israel counted on U.S.-Russian understandings to keep the Syrian border region quiescent. Number 4, Jordan and King Abdullah are suddenly exposed even more than Israel to icy draughts from more than one direction, from Damascus, where Assad is gaining strength, from Lebanese Hezbollah, boosted by pro-Iranian Iraqi militias and sitting on their border, and directly from Tehran. Revolutionary Iran always regarded the overthrow of a Sunni Hashemite king in Amman as a glittering, although unattainable feat that would have planted pro-Iranian forces on the eastern border of Israel and the northern border of Saudi Arabia. Tehran may now rate that prize to be potentially within its reach. Debka Weekly sources report that when the news of the imminent U.S. departure from Syria landed in Amman, the king contacted President Trump and asked him to delay the move from the Al Tanf base, which guards the Syrian-Jordanian border. He asked for time to get set to face the freshly unimpeded Iranian threat. Trump promised to discuss this request with his advisors, but Abdullah's anxiety was not allayed. Number 5, Iraq. Wednesday night, administration officials were quick to state that the U.S. was not proposing to withdraw the 5,000 American troops from Iraq as well as Syria, but that is only half the story. Debka Weekly sources point to the disclosure in former issues of Trump administration steps to work with Iran in setting up an agreed post-election government in Baghdad. There is no doubt that the removal of the American presence from Syria and the opening of the Syrian-Iraqi border to free Iranian and pro-Iranian passage will strengthen Iran's hold on Baghdad and weaken Saudi influence. Like the Jordanian monarch, the Saudi royal house is badly rattled by the escalating perils on its border. Number 6, the damaging fallout from Trump's step in his administration's plummeting credibility in the Middle East. Its rulers are already rating the value of his promises no higher than that of his predecessor, Barack Obama. Number 7, Saudi Arabia. It is hard to see how the Sunni-led moderate alliance the Trump administration worked hard to fashion by bringing Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the UAE under the U.S. aegis will survive. It is even harder to see how Israel will take its place in that lineup as envisioned not long ago in Washington, Riyadh, and Jerusalem when cold winds are blowing in the region from the White House. Now, I'll have something to say about that. See, Israel is going to take over hegemony in the region. The world just doesn't know it yet. Now, so what was the reason? Why did President Donald Trump abruptly declare pulling out troops in Syria? Well, let's look at the next article, shall we? And this is on issue 28 on Debka Weekly. Trump's Syria pullout grounded in a covert deal for Turkey's takeover of North Syria. This is very important, folks, because there is something written in, where is it? Revelation, is it 16? Possibly about this. I'll read this first, and I don't think there's any more that I need to read. just this one, and then we'll go to the book of Revelation and have a little look. Laying the ground for U.S. President Donald Trump's shock decision to pull U.S. troops out of north and east Syria was a live wire. His advisor on Syria, James Jeffrey, had been flitting in and out of Ankara for the past 2 months under their Middle East radar to tie up the ends of a secret deal with Turkish President Erdogan. Now, let me remind everybody that Erdogan is nearly as vocal in his anti-Israel hatred and demanding that Jerusalem be taken from Israel. Yet, we have this from President Donald Trump. His movements were observed by U.S. Defense Secretary James Mattis and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, but they were certain that Jeffries was fleshing out the plan to carve out a U.S. enclave of influence in northeastern Syria and secure it with semi-autonomous Kurdish-led state entity Turkey was allowed to expand its military control alongside the enclave, as Debka Weekly 826 reported on November the 30th. U.S. marks out areas of influence in northwest Syria anchored in a new Kurdish-led political entity and army. As far as Mattis and Pompeo were concerned, this U.S.-Turkish-Kurdish alignment was designed to be a barrier against Russian, Iranian, Syrian push in Syria, with support from friendly Arab Gulf states and Israel. Jeffrey, arguably the only American who Erdogan contended even before his White House appointment that U.S.-Turkish relations are the key to stability in Syria and marred only by Turkey's unqualified hostility to the Kurds, especially the Syrian faction. The panacea he proposed was not to tone down Erdogan's hostility, but to persuade Syrian Kurds to break off ties with their brothers of the Turkish PKK underground movement, which Ankara designates a terrorist organization, and build relations of trust with Ankara. Washington could then mend its ties with Ankara and restore Turkey to the role of a trustworthy ally ready to break away from Russia and Iran. This doctrine was adopted as their policy guidelines for Syria and U.S.-Turkish ties. By the Pentagon, the State Department, the National Security Council, U.S. intelligence agency, and a row of bodies involved in U.S. policymaking. But Trump's sudden decision to pull U.S. troops from Syria forthwith revealed that this doctrine had been no more than a front for a completely different agenda, which had been developed covertly by the president's advisor on Syria with his approval. Behind this facade, the White House has taken steps that led to Trump's bombshell announcement. On Debka Weekly's intelligence sources count these steps. Number one, on October the 12th, Ankara suddenly released the American pastor, Andrew Brunson. This was said to have been part of a secret deal between Ankara and Washington to lift the sanctions that would have sunk the Turkish lira and extradite the Turkish opposition cleric Fethullah Gulen, whom Erdogan accused of masterminding the failed 2016 coup against him. Those reports were strenuously denied by President Trump. Number two, quiet negotiations took place to dissuade Turkey from executing a $2.5 billion transaction for the purchase of Russian S-400 air defense systems. Their acquisition would have led to the integration of the air defense forces of a NATO member with parallel Russian outfits in Syria and Crimea, and becoming part of Russia's Eastern Mediterranean and Black Sea deployments. As recently as December the 1st, Turkish Foreign Minister Cavusoglu stated, S-400 is a done deal. We have already finalized this deal and will buy S-400s from Russia without any question. In the last 10 years, we tried to buy air defense systems from our American friends. I mean the Patriots. It didn't work. We have an urgent need, and that's why we bought S-300s. According to our sources, that statement was part of the charade staged by Jeffrey. The mask came off on December the 18th when the U.S. State Department approved a possible $3.5 billion sale of Patriot air and missile defense systems to Turkey after notifying Congress of the certification. The Kremlin spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, hurriedly remarked that America's deal did not cancel Turkey's purchase of the S-400s, but say our sources he is wrong. Erdogan promised Jeffries that he would call off the deal with Moscow if he was assured of American defense systems as well as advanced F-35 stealth planes for his Air Force. This is enraging. Unbelievable. Number 3, another part of the charade was the U.S. announcement that its military had established 3 observation posts in northern Syria for preventing clashes between Turkish forces and U.S.-backed Kurdish militia. Erdogan was said to be strongly opposed to this plan. That, too, was a piece of deception. On the quiet, without the knowledge of Secretary Mattis or U.S. military chiefs in Syria, Erdogan had consented to the plan, while the Americans assured the Kurds that the observations posts would keep them safe against the Turkish military concentrations they saw building up in northern Syria for a leap across the Euphrates to the east. Yes, this leap across the Euphrates to the east. Keep that in the back of your mind, folks, as I continue reading. Number 4, Debka Weekly sources can reveal that these steps are coming together as a masquerade staged to conceal the crux of the deal Jeffrey struck with Erdogan. Under the deal, it was agreed that the U.S. Army would evacuate all 12 bases in the Kurdish regions of northern Syria. Turkish forces would then cross over into East Euphrates, march up to the Syrian Kurds' capital of Qamishli, and under its guns form a military pact with Turkey. This pact would affirm Turkey's control of Syria's entire northern region from the Mediterranean coast in the west up to the Iraqi border in the east in place of the U.S. Army. Number 5, our sources report that President Trump additionally promised Erdogan that he will conduct a thorough inquiry into the charges brought against the exiled Turkish cleric with a view to eventually extradite him to Turkey. Erdogan turns out to be the sole winner of the deal Jeffrey negotiated on behalf of President Trump. It resulted in cataclysmic U.S. military withdrawal from Syria with disastrous fallout on U.S. allies, while the Turkish leader achieved his goals without granting a single discernible concession in return. Between Donald Trump's peace deal of the century, which I'm dubbing as the peace scam of the century, after what Nikki Haley said was in it, how she said that the Palestinians would gain a lot and that Israel would risk a lot. What that means in black and white, in truthful terms, is that the Palestinians would gain a lot and that Israel would lose a lot. And as I mentioned, as an Israeli had pointed out, that every time an American president tried to force Israel into some sort of peace deal, catastrophe happens in the United States. And now this is going to be the biggest one of them all. The deal of the century, the scam of the century. And now we know that there is a scam artist in our midst, with this shady, deceitful, deal that Donald Trump has made with dictator Erdogan, an avid Israel hater, claiming that he's going to liberate Jerusalem from Israel. Okay, I said I was going to go to Revelation 16, and I want to show you something here. Now, I know a lot of people think that the seals, the trumpets, and the vials are all in exact sequence. I don't know that for sure, and I'll tell you why. There's something written in Revelation 10 that makes me wonder. I'll go to that too in just a minute. But what I'm going to do is go over verse 13. And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs. Now, remember, this is a vision that John saw, or a series of visions. Just like the series of visions that King Pharaoh saw and that Joseph was able to interpret, just like the visions that that came in sequence, first to Nebuchadnezzar, and then another one to Daniel the prophet. In each case, well, in the first case, Daniel, with the help of the Almighty, was able to interpret the vision. But when Daniel got the vision, Gabriel, the angel, had to come and explain to him because he did not know what it meant. Now, if we think we know what these visions of John mean entirely, we don't. I'm going to explain to you how it is that we don't. Okay. But I'm going to go ahead and start with verse 12. And the 6th angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. Now, the word east is what? What do you see? Anatolia. The kings of Anatolia. What is kings? Oh, not kings. King, singular, one. Basileus. What is a basileus? A ruler, a king or a ruler. In some passages, clearly translated emperor. Okay, so he's a ruler. Is Erdogan a ruler of Turkey? Yes. Is Erdogan ruler of Anatolia? Yes. Okay. Now, Anatolia means east. That's what it means. But it's Anatolia. Now, we just read that an agreement between Donald Trump and Erdogan was made so that Donald Trump could bring his troops home, and then Erdogan would take over where the U.S. troops left off, including along the Euphrates River. And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast. Now, the beast would be Europe, Romanish Europe, and the mouth of the false prophet, that would be the man who sits in the Vatican. For they are spirits of devils working wonders, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and the whole world to gather them to battle in that great day of Jehovah Almighty. Now, and where is this battle located, folks? In Megiddo Valley. Megiddo Valley. Where's Megiddo Valley? Right next to the Valley of Jezreel. Northern Israel. In the north. So, this is the Ezekiel 38 war, isn't it? Why is this sitting here at the 6th vial? Are they in sequence or are they not? Before I go to Revelation 10, let me remind everyone something. When the walls of Jericho came down, did they come down on the 7th vial? Let me show you something. The 7th bowl of wrath, the 7th angel poured out his vial into the air, and it came a great voice out of heaven, out of the temple of heaven, from the throne, saying, "It is done." And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as not men since men were upon the earth. So mighty an earthquake, and so great, and the great city was became or was 3 portions. And all the cities of the nations fell, and great Babylon came in remembrance before Jehovah to give her unto the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. And if all the cities of the nations fell, that means Rome fell too. So the 7th bowl of wrath was a time when Jericho falls, or Babylon falls, or the cities of the world falls. But wait a minute. When we go to the book of Joshua, or Yehoshua is how his name really was, we see that it happened on the 7th day of the blowing of the trumpets. On the 7th day, and then they went around the city 7 times. And then they blew the trumpet with a shout. And a great the great earthquake came, and the city came crashing down, right? Let me show you something. Let's go to Revelation 10. I've often wondered about this, and even my dad has often wondered about this. All right, let's start in verse 1. And I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and a rainbow was upon his head, and his face was as it were the sun, and his feet as pillars of fire. And he had in his hand a little book open, and he set his right foot upon the sea, and his left foot upon the land. And he cried with a loud voice, as when a lion roars. Does that sound familiar? Hosea 11, anyone? And when he cried, 7 thunders uttered their voices. And when the 7 thunders had uttered their voices, I was about to write, and I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, seal up those things which the 7 thunders uttered, and write them not. And the angel which I saw stand upon the sea and upon the earth lifted up his hand to heaven and swore by him that lives forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that are therein are, and the earth, and the things that are therein are, and the sea, and the things which are therein, that there should be time no longer, but in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound the mystery. See that word, mystery? This is the reason why we don't understand like we should, or like we could, if only the seven thunders would be revealed. But it's a mystery, because that is saved for the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound. The mystery of Jehovah should be. Now this word finished is, the English word finished is not as much quality as this particular teleo in Greek. Yes, the word finished is much more crude than teleo. As he declared to his servants, the prophets. Okay. To his servants, what prophets? How about Ezekiel in Ezekiel 38 and 39? How about Joel in Joel 2 and Joel 3? How about Jeremiah? How about Isaiah? How about Hosea 11? How about that? Huh? So, it is because an angel did not come and translate John's visions for us. There's no way we can truly understand the sequence of the seals, the trumpets, and the vials until the seventh trumpet sounds. And then that mystery will be finished. Okay, should be finished. Okay, bring to an end, complete, fulfill. And finish, fulfill, accomplish. We will continue. Consummate. That's slightly different. So that's slightly different, isn't it? Properly to complete, consummate, finish qualitatively the necessary process. Oh, there's a process. You see, we look at the word finish is as bam, done, over. No, that's not what it means. When finish the necessary process, it means there's a process taking place. Now, this one right here, the next one, is probably the best translation. Rolling over to the next level, the next phase. That is the best one. At the time of when the angel who's blowing the seventh trumpet is beginning to sound, that is the time when the consummation, the rolling over to the next level, takes place. So, what I wanted to point out was verse 3, and he cried with a loud voice as when a lion roars. Okay, let's go to Hosea. Remember what it said about what's written in the prophets Well, in the same passage, same sentence almost, okay? All right. So what we can see here, I'm going to show everyone that this is about saving of Ephraim from a far country. Verse 8, how shall I give you up, Ephraim? How shall I deliver you up to be destroyed? Israel, how shall I make you as Admah and Zeboim, sister cities of Sodom and Gomorrah? So he's not going to allow them to burn in their cities wherever they are in the last days. Nope. He's got a plan. Okay? My heart is turned within me, and my repentings are kindled together. I will not execute the fierceness of my wrath. I will not return to destroy Ephraim, for I am Jehovah, not a man, the Holy One in the midst of you. I will not enter into the excitement. Not most of the time, that means into the city. Okay? All right. What was that? What did I just see? Rage. Okay, see, right here in Brown Driver Briggs, of terror and rage. So he is not going to inflict his rage upon Ephraim, he says. That's what it really means. Okay, so what is the answer? They will walk after Jehovah. He will roar like a lion. 7 thunders, folks. Well, actually, let's see. Let me go back here. All right. Yes, verse 3, Revelation 10. And he cried with a loud voice as when a lion roars. And when he cried, 7 thunders uttered their voices. Interesting, huh? They shall walk after Jehovah, and he will roar like a lion. And when he roars, then the children of Israel shall tremble, or will come trembling from, it says, the sea, the Mediterranean Sea. Now, they put in there west, and that is accurate. But they will be coming in from the sea. They're going to be coming in from Europe. They're going to be coming in from the Atlantic. The west side. Western. Westward. West. 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 Okay. Now, let's see. One thing I want to look up before I go, just hit me. Now, and Ephraim said, yet I am become rich, and I have found me out substance. In all my labors, they will find no iniquity in me that was sin. Basically, and it is so true in the last days, that Ephraim is among the Gentiles. And this is one of the things that Jehovah had a big problem with Ephraim, is that he would love to mingle himself among the Gentiles. Well, what's going to happen is when the Gentiles fall, and become hungry, so will Ephraim. That's why Ephraim is going to be coming trembling from the west, because he got really shook up by world events. And he got hungry. Story of the lost son. That's what it's all about, folks. Now I want to go to this. Oh, you can't read it? Wait a minute. Where did my translator go? Well, that's odd. The translator left. Let's try it again. There we go. All right. So in Ukraine, dated today, draft resolution on the appeal of the Rada, that's the Parliament of Ukraine, to the President of Ukraine regarding the what? Declaration of war, the breakdown of diplomatic relations, and the cessation of transport links with the Russian Federation. What this shows is here, folks, that a draft resolution for a declaration of war with Russia was submitted today. Yes, you read it right. If I can remember, I will post a link. If I forget to post a link, one of you can remind me and I will do that. So then we have this. No, that's not it. IDF war news. Okay. So on Union News, posted, well, it's already tomorrow there in Ukraine. Russian military hardware spotted moving in occupied Crimea. There's a video. Okay. Russian submarines conducting drills off the coast of occupied Crimea. Russian military hardware spotted moving in occupied Crimea. One Ukrainian soldier wounded in Donbass in the past day. Ukraine says 3 sabotage groups of Russian military intelligence arrested in Donbass. No denial from Putin on Wagner mercenaries in Donbass. Okay. Now, there was something else. I don't have it in front of me, but you can look that up yourself. There are reports that Ukraine is going to bring military ships through the Kerch Strait again, this time with NATO officers on board and officers of another international watchdog group aboard. And Russia is calling it a provocation. That's set to happen. So what I'm saying is, if you think you know when the first trumpet sounds, when the second trumpet sounds, when the third trumpet sounds, we just read that it's a mystery and it will remain a mystery. All those things, sequences, will remain a mystery, and a lot of the contents thereof will remain a mystery until the seventh angel begins to sound his trumpet. So what I'm saying is, when you look at Bible prophecy and you think you know, especially with the trumpets and the seals and the vials, before you go and cross the railroad track, you make sure you look to the right and you look to the left so you don't get run over. With these events that are about to happen right now, do the same thing. And don't assume anything. Assume nothing. But when you see them coming down through the Golan Heights into northern Israel, remember Ezekiel 38 and 39. Also remember Joel 2 and Joel 3. And don't forget one more thing. The new covenant, as described in not only Jeremiah 31 verses 31 through 34, but all of Jeremiah 30 and 31. So, hopefully, we're updated. As we just learned, we cannot put our trust in any man. For presidencies, prime ministerships, whatever. They they have their own agendas. Be careful. Keep your eyes open. Look both ways before you cross the road.